My name is John, and today I want to share a story that has moved me deeply. It's a story about hope, perseverance, and the power of dreams. This is the story of Michael, a man who came from nothing and became everything he ever wanted to be, not just because he found success, but because he never let the hardships of life take away his heart. Michael was born in a quiet, forgotten town in the southern part of the United States. The town was small, with dusty streets, old wooden houses, and people who barely had enough to get by. Michael's family was among the poorest. His father worked at a factory, long hours for very little pay. His mother stayed home, taking care of Michael and his two younger sisters. They didn't have much sometimes. They didn't even have enough food on the table. Every night, Michael would see his mother sitting by the window, staring out into the dark, as if waiting for a miracle that never came. One evening, Michael was about 10 years old, sitting in the corner of their small, one-room house, watching his parents whisper to each other. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see the worry on their faces. His mother's hands shook as she folded her apron. His father rubbed his forehead, exhausted after another long day at the factory. Michael wanted to help, but what could a boy like him do? He wasn't strong like his father. He wasn't clever like the kids at school who seemed to have it all. That night, as they lay on their thin mattresses, Michael heard his mother crying softly. It was a sound that broke his heart. He wanted to be strong for her, to make things better. He promised himself that one day he would. One day, they wouldn't have to worry about money. One day, his mother would smile instead of cry. But as the years went on, that dream seemed farther and farther away. By the time Michael was 15, things had gotten worse. His father had lost his job at the factory when it closed down. There were no other jobs in the town, and many families, like Michael's, were struggling to survive. They barely had enough to pay rent, let alone afford any luxuries. Every day, Michael saw the weight of the world growing heavier on his parents' shoulders. I need to do something, Michael thought. He didn't know what, but he knew he couldn't just sit by and watch his family suffer. So, he went out and started looking for work. He didn't care what kind of job it was, anything would do. He walked from house to house, asking if anyone needed help. Some days he'd get small jobs mowing lawns or cleaning up yards. Other days there was nothing, but he kept going. One cold morning, after weeks of searching, Michael met a man named Mr. Jenkins. He was an old man who lived alone at the edge of town. His house was falling apart, and his garden was overgrown. Michael offered to help for just a few dollars, but Mr. Jenkins looked at him and smiled. "Young man, I don't have much money either, but I'll give you something better. I'll give you advice." At first, Michael didn't understand. He needed money, not words. But Mr. Jenkins had a different plan. "You see, money comes and goes," he said, "but knowledge, that stays with you forever." Michael listened as the old man shared stories about his younger days, how he had worked hard, saved up, and built a business from nothing. "I started just like you, with no money in my pocket," Mr. Jenkins said. "But I had a dream, and I never let go of it, no matter how hard things got." Michael went home that day with something more valuable than money. He had hope. He realized that even though he had nothing now, that didn't mean he would have nothing forever. He just needed to hold on to his dream, just like Mr. Jenkins had. Over the next few years, Michael worked tirelessly. He kept doing odd jobs around town, saving every dollar he could. It wasn't much, but every little bit helped. He also started reading books from the library, books about business, success, and how to turn small ideas into big things. He didn't understand everything he read, but he kept learning, kept asking questions, and kept dreaming. But life, as it often does, had other plans. When Michael turned 18, his father became ill. The doctor said it was from years of working in the factory, breathing in toxic chemicals. They didn't have enough money for proper treatment, and Michael felt helpless again. Watching his father grow weaker each day was one of the hardest things Michael ever went through. He had promised himself that he would take care of his family, but now it felt like time was running out. One evening, as Michael sat by his father's bedside, his father looked at him with tired eyes. "Son," he whispered, "I've seen you work so hard. I know you want to make things better for us, but sometimes life doesn't turn out the way we plan. Don't lose yourself in the struggle. Don't forget why you started. It's not just about money, it's about being there for each other." Those words stayed with Michael long after his father passed away. They became his guiding light. He realized that while money was important, it wasn't everything. What mattered most was family, love, and the strength to keep going, no matter how hard life became. But Michael didn't give up on his dream. He kept working, kept saving, and kept believing. After his father's death, he started a small business selling tools and supplies to farmers. It wasn't much at first, just a tiny shop with a few shelves, but it was a start. He put everything he had into that business. He woke up before sunrise and worked late into the night, often skipping meals just to make sure he could pay the bills. His mother watched him with pride, but she also worried. "Michael, "You're working too hard," she'd say. "You need to rest," but Michael couldn't rest. He was determined to make his dream come true, not just for himself, but for his family. As the years passed, Michael's little shop began to grow. Word spread about his honest work and dedication. Farmers from other towns started coming to buy from him. He hired a few workers to help out, and soon, his small business turned into something bigger. Michael couldn't believe it. After all those years of struggling, of wondering if he'd ever make it, his dream was finally becoming real. But even with his growing success, life continued to throw challenges his way. There were times when the business wasn't doing well, when the market crashed, and Michael thought he would lose everything. There were nights when he sat alone in the shop, feeling like a failure. But he always remembered his father's words, "Don't lose yourself in the struggle." Michael realized that success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about the journey, the lessons learned along the way, and the people you meet. Every failure taught him something new. Every setback made him stronger. And through it all, he never lost sight of what was truly important: his family, his dreams, and the hope that had carried him through the darkest times. Eventually, Michael's business became one of the largest in the region. He became a millionaire, something he had never imagined as a boy growing up in that small, forgotten town. But even with all his wealth, he stayed humble. He still lived in the same town, in a modest house, with his mother and sisters. He never forgot where he came from. Michael often said, "Money can buy you many things, but it can't buy you peace of mind. It can't buy you the feeling of knowing you've done something good with your life." He believed that true success wasn't measured by the money in your bank account, but by the impact you have on the people around you. And so, Michael's story is not just one of riches and success. It's a story of resilience, of never giving up, even when the odds are against you. It's a story of love, of family, and of the belief that no matter how hard life gets, there's always hope. Now, as I tell you this story, I want to ask you something. What is your dream? What are you willing to do to make it come true? Life will always be full of challenges, but remember, it's not about how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get back up.